What's up guys, EDA Talk Sports here, back with another video, and this time we're covering an absolute banger, Alex Pereira versus Khalil Rountree Jr. And guys, this is why we love MMA, this is why we love the UFC. We're in for an absolute treat with the main card, and we're going to be breaking down all the fights on this card as we do. So let's just get into it, let's not waste any time. I'm extremely excited, I hope you are too. And we are looking at a fight card and a main event that many weren't expecting. Khalil Rountree has been around for a while. He has probably grown in a lot of people's eyes, especially in my estimations. When I first saw him, you see his physique, you see how muscular he is. You expect a certain type of fighter, and he's not that. He's highly technical, he's highly thoughtful, very proficient in his fighting style. He loves to strike, there's no doubt about that. He's not someone who tends to take fights to the ground, and against his opposition, you would normally think that's the greatest route for success. That being Alex Pereira, that being the former middleweight champion of the world, and also the current light heavyweight champion of the world, an absolute phenom, someone who, in my estimations of watching MMA and him coming up and knowing his history with Adesanya, me being a fan of Adesanya, he wasn't someone I necessarily liked. I'd watched the previous Adesanya fights, I'd watched some of his kickboxing title victories, and I'd seen how good he was. But since coming to the MMA circuit and since coming to the UFC, he's shown a different level. His ability to be so active, his ability to show his power and domination, his ability to even have, a deficiency in his game being his ground game, not being exposed to the level. And now he's a multiple division champion. He's one of the biggest draws for the UFC, and he saves them on multiple occasions with fight cards. And this is none too different here with Khalil Rountree Jr. coming in. And so looking at both men, there's a clear difference in terms of height, less so in terms of experience. Obviously, Pereira has had his MMA career expedited due to his rivalry and due to what he's done in the kickboxing circuit. And so he sits at the top of the throne, but I don't think he's had a fight at the light heavyweight division against an opponent like Khalil Rountree, and I think he presents to him a slightly different problem than he's had. The greatest striker that Alex Pereira has fought in the UFC is clearly Israel Adesanya, and you could see that even in Pereira's fights against Adesanya, he was under some pressure, he was under some understanding in terms of what needed to be done, and I think he knew he couldn't be as gung-ho as he could be against someone like a Sean Strickland, who you know what you're going to get. I think the domination he showed against Yuri Prochazka in both those fights, and I think in the first one Yuri put up a good showing. In the second one, that knockout and that kick was absolutely devastating, and so he's shown his power, he's shown it against high level opposition. There's not many that can doubt Alex Pereira, and so if he comes through this against Khalil Rountree, which is no easy feat. I mean, Khalil Rountree is a technical striker, is someone who can come out and has the power as well. He's on a win streak that shouldn't be ignored, and he could be one of the biggest, threats to Pereira's throne in the light heavyweight division. Yes, he's 8th ranked, and I know a lot of people are looking at this, how does he get this opportunity? But the streak he's on, the state of the rest of the light heavyweight division, it's a perfect opportunity, and I think we're in for a banger. This isn't someone who's going to shy away from their own game because of Alex Pereira. This is someone who's going to come and fight him, and you could get knocked out. It could be the end of you and your title aspirations, but it could be the making of you. And so I'd much prefer that than someone who's going to be passive, because passive against Alex Pereira is defeat essentially. And so it's going to be very, very interesting. And so I think in terms of my prediction for this one, I'm going to go with Alex Pereira. I think that's the smart bet, but I wouldn't rule out Khalil Rountree, and there's something in the air. I mean, when they stood off against each other, there was something in the air for sure. Khalil has confidence in his own ability. I think that's something that's very, very clear. He has confidence in his own ability, and it will show on the night if he's right to have that confidence, or if there's just a better man, someone who's got a better skill set and a better range of tools to use in their striking as opposed to him. So that's going to be the interesting aspect there. I think going on into the co-main event, the women's bantamweight title fight, we have the return of Juliana Pena versus Raquel Pennington. And what can we say here? Well, Raquel Pennington won the title against Bruna Silva, and she showed, I guess, a proficient game, her experience. It was a pretty easy fight, to be honest with you. Bruna Silva had none of the fight and venom that she normally has, and for Raquel it was pretty much an easy night in the office. She's on her win streak of her own, built that up with wins across the division, and in a much more kind of dominating style. Not very exciting if we're being honest, but that's not the name of the game. The name of the game is to win, and that's what she needs to do when she comes up against Juliana Pena. In terms of respect for champions, I think Raquel's probably has to have one of the lowest. I think Carla Esparza was next to, you know, Raquel when it comes to respect, and I think she has to go out there and earn her respect and demand her respect. Yes, you can be humble, but against someone like Juliana, you need to put her in the ground and you need to show her that I'm much better than you. You're not on my level. You talk a big game, but you don't deliver that big game, and that's what Raquel's going to need to do. She has the skill set to do so, but Juliana, as many people don't like her, she's a dog. She's an absolute dog. She's a fighter. She's a hustler. In that fight against Nunes, there was a lot of, you know, discussion and thought around Juliana has no shot. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of me and a lot of us were like, you don't have a shot. But there was something about the unrelenting confidence that she had in herself. And whether Juliana had an off night or whatever it may be, and yes, she lost the rematch, Juliana shows that she's got heart and she's a dog and she keeps fighting. And she's going to need that to win this title. She's going to need that to set up an absolute blockbuster for her and for her opponent in Kayla Harrison. Yes, we could get a Kayla Harrison versus Raquel Pennington title fight next. That doesn't draw as much as Juliana Pena does if she wins this, and so it's on Juliana to show and back up all the talk that she's had. It's up to her to show the win against Nunes wasn't a fluke. It was who she is, and yeah, to right the wrongs of that rematch, because she was dominated for 5 rounds. She had heart. She kept fighting. She didn't give up. Yes, but you've got to show that you're championship material on a level, and that means beating Raquel Pennington. So going to be really interesting. Who am I going to go for? I'm going to be a bit of a wild card here just because I like Juliana, and she talks. A lot of the people in you know, the women's division and the bantamweight division, they don't talk, and you need to sell fights. You need to promote fights, and she does a good job of that. And yeah, I would like to see Juliana recapture the title. Nothing against Raquel. She's a really good fighter, and yeah, I mean, she's shown her worth in her win streak. Next up is Jose Aldo versus Batista. And again, when we look at the two fighters, I think we're looking at one very clearly an aging Jose Aldo, someone who's at the twilight of their career, someone who's still putting in very decent performances. I know he had a spout of boxing performances, performed really well there. And, you know, this is a fight that, if he loses, could spell the end of his MMA career. Retirement isn't first, you know, thought for him, obviously, but he's mentioned it previously, and so a loss here could be the end of him. And he's coming up against Batista, who is on a 6-fight win streak. This is a man that's only lost twice in the UFC, and one of those losses against Corey Sandhagen, most recent, you know, one of the most recent fighters for the number 1 contendership for the bantamweight division. And so it's going to be really, really interesting to see what happens here. I think in Jose Aldo's case, a loss here may just spell the end of his career. I think for Batista, if he wins here, he's 1 or 2 fights away from, you know, getting into a title discussion. Getting a scalp like Jose Aldo on your record is massive, and I think he'll be going out there to do what he can for the victory. I'm really impressed with his win streak, and this could be a massive scalp for him. So I'm going with Batista on this one. Jose Aldo, yes, has been quality, but I think this is an opportunity for someone to show their domination and potentially that being enough to send him into retirement. Moving on to the middleweight clash between Roman Dolidze and Kevin Holland, 2 fighters who I actually enjoy watching. Kevin Holland will always give you an entertaining fight for whatever reason, whether he's getting dominated, whether he's doing the dominating. In his last fight against Michael Olajeszek, he was doing the dominating. First round sub, that was, you know, different from the loss that he had against MVP, but Kevin Holland's always going to show out. He's always going to give you an entertaining fight, whatever role he's playing, and so I expect none the less here. Roman Dolidze was on a really nice streak, suffered back-to-back losses, and was able to get the victory in his most recent fight. This fight is going to be very interesting for him, coming up against someone who's as awkward as Kevin Holland. You would say the clear advantage for Roman would be potentially in his wrestling, less so in his jiu-jitsu, which Kevin is proficient and in terms of striking, I think Kevin is a tiny bit more awkward. Roman is fundamentally sound and hits relatively hard. So it's going to be interesting. I think for me, probably going to go with Kevin. I think he has the ability to pull out something a little bit different that Roman's not expecting. And yeah, a win and continuing the momentum he's got from his last victory should put him in good stead as he continues through the division. I think Kevin Holland doesn't really have a specific direction. Whoever, whenever, as long as they pay him, which I'm sure he likes. Next fight, and one of the fighters that we briefly spoke about, Vieira versus Caitlin Harrison. So again, two fighters who are on probably, this is the perfect meeting of the minds at the moment, to be honest with you. Harrison, who has come into the UFC. In her first fight, she won, dominating. The path for her is clear. UFC gold. Bantamweight UFC gold is her goal. It's very clear the trajectory that she's come on. No surprise, she's been speaking about the UFC and coming to the UFC for years, and she's come now and she's here. And I think it's going to be, win this fight and move on to the title fight, and I expect her to win this fight. I think we've seen flashes from Vieira in the past where she's been quite aggressive, where she's shown her technical ability, but I don't think she's been able to put it together for a consistent period. And since she's lost that fire, yes, I know she won her last fight, but since she lost that fire, I just don't think she's a threat for Kayla Harrison. I think this should be one of Kayla's more threatening fights. Harrison obviously hasn't fought at the level of most UFC talent, especially top talent, and so it should be a challenge, but I'm expecting her to walk out with the victory and continue her momentum to her title. And briefly, we're just going to cover one of the prelims, the fight that's going to be headlining the prelims, Stephen Thompson versus Juwan Buckley. Two fighters again, Juwan Buckley on a streak of his own, and it will be looking to continue his momentum. Stephen Thompson again, suffering the loss to Shavkat wasn't ideal. Submission wasn't ideal, especially for someone who likes to keep fight standing. But for Juwan, he comes off the victory against Vicente Luque. He's going to continue. He looked to continue his momentum. He's had a couple setbacks in the past, but this is a fight where if it remains standing, Stephen Thompson, could run out as an easy victor if he controls the distance. If he keeps Buckley at a distance and not able to get anywhere near him, then he should run out as an easy victor. But that's not always as easy as it seems, because Juwan Buckley again is a little bit of a dog. He knows how to make the fight nasty. It may not be as quick as you expect. I'm expecting Thompson to dominate the first round, maybe the first round and a half, and Buckley to try and make it as ugly as possible, get him down to the ground, fight on the inside, and get any advantage he can. So for this fight, I'm probably gonna go. It's a difficult one. I mean, Stephen Thompson has all the technical ability. Juwan Buckley could make it dirty and aggressive. I don't know if Buckley can do what he needs to do within 3 rounds to win the fight. And so I think Thompson, if he fights his fight initially, he could win a round or 2 before Buckley even gets a chance. So I'm going to go on the points and by decision, Stephen Thompson to win the fight. So guys, that has been the recap of the main card and the prelim. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Make sure to leave your comments and we will catch you guys on the flip side. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon. Peace.